We are back. Week 11 is in the books, -1 game when Danny's Cowboys get absolutely wiped by Nico Collins, which is why he's wearing the jersey yet again. Interesting week of fantasy football. Thankfully, fingers crossed, no major injuries, really. There was no, the players that went down were like not that fantasy relevant. So we'll talk about the injuries here in a second. Overall, what do you think was like the biggest, like we're going to just do kind of off the cuff takeaways for sure. But what do you think was just like you walked away from this week being like, yeah, that's crazy.
Crazy. I don't know about, the one that I talked about with you, the first one that jumped off on my head. And obviously this is going to happen because when you're biased, when you have players in a lot of different spots, you're going to notice their big games more than you're going to notice just other players that you don't have. It happens, other than the fact that when you play against somebody that goes off, that's going to be somebody that you mentioned. Like, I'm sure we're going to be talking about Taysom Hill. I'm sure we're going to be talking about Jonnu Smith. Like the tight end position as a whole this week completely went off. We'll talk about, but the one for me that I really took away leaving very satisfied, and now he enters his bye week, so maybe things could change after the bye, but this is the second straight week in a row of Chase Brown 100% of the running back touches for the Bengals. If he is going to have even like, I don't even want to be too optimistic and say he's going to get 90+% of the touches, because more than likely after the bye, they will work in like a guy like Khalil Herbert or maybe a Fournette. But if you're telling me he's getting 75+% of the running back opportunities for Cincinnati and he becomes a 22, 23 opportunity per game type of back, dog, like how high is too high for him rest of the season? I think you can make a legitimate case he's top 8.
Yeah, again, I'm still like hesitant to put Chase.
He played
Brown
the Chargers,
up
bro.
into that territory, man. Like I know it was a bad matchup, and he's still
crushed.
Cooked. So you gotta love to see that if you're a Chase Brown bag holder, which both of us are in Dynasty and Best Ball and Redraft. We had him literally everywhere, so feel pretty good about that. I think my biggest takeaway was the Colts. This whole like rest your young quarterback to give him a reset. It's kind of been proven effective so far for like 3 different guys. Anthony Richardson had his best game of his career, in my opinion, against the Jets. Not a good defense, really, or not a good defense to be going up against if you're a young quarterback who's struggling. Bryce Young, before the bye, was sat for a couple of games. He came back and looked pretty good. It was the Giants, but it was probably his best game of his career, to be honest. And then Will Levis, this week he didn't perform at a super high level, but given the fact that he was playing the Vikings and the week before he actually looked pretty good against the Chargers, maybe this whole like, bench your young quarterback, give him a little bit of time to reset, and then, let a veteran kind of show him how it's done and then come back in for a week or two. Maybe not the worst thing. Maybe the Colts just botched that situation, but at the same time, I think we can all kind of agree that Anthony Richardson probably played his best game as a pro, or at least one of them.
Yeah, and when we're looking at it too, it's not like Jonathan Taylor was just setting the world on fire. Like 24 carries, 57 yards, like they couldn't really get the ground game going, and Anthony Richardson was winning that game with his arm.
Yeah, well, and Josh Downs is the best receiver on the Colts. And I literally said that going into the season, and people called me nuts on my Dynasty. Like, I did how many videos, Dynasty trade targets by position? 3 or 4 this offseason. Josh Downs was in every single one of those videos because he was constantly undervalued on the open market for keep, trade, cut. And every single time I'm like, dude, he might just be the best receiver on this team.
I'll say one thing, though. Once the Colts realize, okay, let's give up on the Michael Pittman 2024 experiment because he is clearly cooked. He does not look like an NFL caliber receiver with that back injury. Now, it is unfortunate. We know when Michael Pittman's healthy, the caliber receiver is fringe top 20-ish, top 25 level receiver in the NFL. He's a good player, but the back injury, man, like he is just not moving at an NFL athlete standard at this point. Dog, like rest him for the rest of the year. Give AD those snaps, because every time AD comes in, he's making a huge, like, dude, what he did to Sauce Gardner on that little catch and run, the guy was eating turf.
Yeah, no, he's a good player, man. It's weird that we got back to where we were before the season started with the Colts, where we're like, these are good players around Anthony Richardson. And if Anthony Richardson can figure it out, he can be good. Let me ask you this. If Anthony Richardson's dynasty trade value was in the toilet, like probably QB 25 or something, or 20 on the open market, if you were
over under a quarterback 15.5 right now.
Well, let me ask you this. Who would you rather have in dynasty fantasy football? Let's play the game. There's a big cluster of older quarterbacks that are all productive, that, again, maybe it's team dependent, but would you rather have Jared Goff or Anthony Richardson in dynasty right now?
A-Rich, not close.
Okay, so you're back there then with Anthony Richardson. You're back that he's a guy that we should feel comfortable. He's going to be a starter in 2025.
Well, for reference, I had him and Jared Goff in the same tier going into this week because of the upside of A-Ridge. Now he shows even closer to that upside. Like I'm talking, like he was quarterback 20 entering this week. With Dak's hamstring injury, you have to take him over Dak because there's the upside that Anthony Richardson, if he continues doing what he did this past week, and maybe this is the week that it clicked for him, dog, like what's too high for him? If he, again, hypothetical world, obviously there is downside risk. I'm not saying he's this perfect asset. But if he keeps playing the way he did this week and he carries that to the rest of the season, maybe gets the Colts on the birth of a playoff spot or just out like an 8-9, 9-8 type of situation and really shows that promise. Are we talking about a guy that is a first-round startup pick again? Because I really think that's the possibility that we can get to.
I need to see him chain 3 or 4 more of those games.
I agree,
to be honest, because this is where I was anti Richardson pretty heavily, like most of the season. So yeah. I buried Richardson all the way behind Michael Penix and guys like that, where Richardson wasn't even a starter. And I was like, okay, well, what is the future of this quarterback? What are we doing with this guy? And now I'm ready to say he's at least in a tier with Jared Goff and Dak Prescott and Tua Tagovailoa. And I mean, maybe Bo Nix is beyond these guys now, but Bo Nix was previously in that tier with those guys. Maybe he's, the head of that tier now. I think he's at least in that conversation. If not, maybe you could make the argument he should be ahead of them.
So I have him at 16 now. That's where I ended up moving him. So for reference, for those that are wondering, he is right above Baker, Lawrence, Tua, and Dak. He is right behind JJ, Purdy, and Nix. And at this point, I think you can even make the case for him over JJ because obviously JJ is not going to play for the rest of the season, whereas Anthony Richardson is. Now, the reason why I have JJ here is because I feel very confident that regardless of what happens, JJ is going to be a top 35, top 40 startup pick. Whereas with Anthony Richardson, he could either be a first-round pick or he could be a fifth-round pick. Like, there's really no in-between. Like, it's not a scenario in the offseason where it's like, yeah, we're drafting A-Rich in the third round of startup drafts. Depending on what happens the rest of the season, it's going to be one way or the other. I don't think there's a medium point.
No, he's a very difficult asset to value because if you're ranking him just based purely on upside, I think you're doing it wrong. But if you're ranking him based purely on downside, I think you're also doing it wrong. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult to walk a tightrope of like, okay, to me, Baker Mayfield's range of outcomes is just far better when it comes to like tighter range of outcomes than Anthony Richardson's, because Anthony Richardson is this like wiling dervish asset that we have no idea if he's even going to be a starter in 2025, let alone a guy that's a long-term asset, whereas Baker Mayfield's actually performing like a top 10 quarterback in fantasy right now, but he's limited to some degree by the fact that he doesn't run like Richardson runs, and he's also a little bit older than Richardson and that kind of thing. So it's difficult for me to say I would take him over X, Y, and Z quarterback who's better and productive. I think if you're an aging quarterback or a contending quarterback who's very productive right now, like Mayfield, I would still rather have Mayfield than Richardson. But if you're JJ McCarthy, for example, they're both rebuilding quarterbacks, but at least Richardson is playing at this point in time. Same with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence still kind of, I would consider a rebuilding quarterback, but you maybe prefer Richardson in some cases. I would still prefer Lawrence because I think the range of outcomes given the contract is better. But it's close, man. There's these guys you could argue them any which way.
You're going to call me crazy, by the way. Sorry, I'm looking at my Dynasty quarterback rankings, and again, there will be another update in terms of the trade value chart because there is some movement. Like, for example, where does Bo Nix rank? Where does he rank?
Bo Nix is a guy that we need to have a serious conversation about where he's going.
Bo Nix or Patrick Mahomes?
That's crazy. No,
why?
We're not having that conversation. It's
that's quarterback 11 versus quarterback 13 for me. That's why I brought it up.
You have Mahomes quarterback 11.
Am I going to rank him above Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Drake May based off what we've seen this year?
I mean, not Joe Burrow or Drake May, but the rest of the guys I have him ranked out of.
Okay, that's fair. If you want to take him above Kyler or Love, that's fine. But Herbert, I think, has to be a riser. He's quarterback 8 for me now. If we're getting this type of rushing ability, and we already know from an arm talent perspective, he's arguably quarterback 3 to like. If you had to rank the top 5 quarterbacks like in the league this year, I think it's pretty consensus. Now, with the this year factor, Mahomes wouldn't be in it, but for the purpose of sake, we're still going to leave Mahomes in there because we know what he's capable of in the playoff.
Next year, he's going to have Rashee Rice back, Xavier Worthy in year 2. Like I think you have to factor in the fact that Mahomes will be a top 5 quarterback in redraft ADP this time next year.
Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, Herbert are your top 5 quarterbacks in the league. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Herbert, and Burrow. Those are your top 5.
That's how they're playing right now. Yeah.
I think they're just the top 5 in the league, period.
Yeah.
Like,
say Hurts?
Herbert.
Oh, I thought you said Hurts. I think you said Hurts. Am I stunned or did Danny say Hurts in that sentence?
I said Herbert.
Okay.
You can hear me again, but that's fine. Dude, Herbert's been unreal.
Yeah,
he's been great.
He's been excellent. Yeah,
if he's gonna run like this, bro.
Yeah, Nix is really hard to rank, man, because I think
he's 13 for me right now, and I have Caleb at 12, and I can't do that. I can't move him above Caleb.
No, I can't move him above Caleb too. I can't do it over Purdy either, just given the insulation of that situation. I have to put Purdy ahead of him still. Yeah. The one guy that I have at 14, sounds like you have him lower than me, but given the contract, the insulation with the offense, the way that they're operating, I still would prefer Baker Mayfield to Bo Nix, but it's like if you're rebuilding, I would rather have Nix kind of situation. You know what I mean? Like, I think given the production you're getting,
I don't think Mayfield, you can take Mayfield because Nix has an opportunity to rise in dynasty value, whereas Mayfield's, I think, is pretty set.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but dude, like, again, you guys call me crazy.
Who's going to outproduce who rest of the season, though?
I think it's going to be Mayfield, given the schedule. I think it's going to be Mayfield.
Fair.
But they're both really good options rest of the season. Yeah. That's why it's hard to rank these two guys.
It's crazy that you had to take the anti-Nix stance considering the offseason. But
I love Nix, man. I was like the pro-Nix guy from the beginning. I was in on Nix before you were when we were watching his tape. I'm like, dude, Nix is good.
Dude, no, trust me. And you knew I like Nix too. Like, the fact that we're talking about 4 of the top 14 or 15 dynasty quarterbacks being in this class is
without really McCarthy and Penix, who haven't played.
Well, McCarthy's included in that. He hasn't played.
I don't have McCarthy ahead of Nix or Mayfield for now. I think again, top if you're 17. Projecting a rebuilding team, I think you could definitely get there, but it is still a mystery box type of guy.
Top 17, then sure. We'll put him at like quarterback 16 or 7. Anyways, though, like, and I mean, we can have the conversation. Like, I still think I don't want to overreact on Daniels' struggle because I think he should still be a top 4 overall pick. But what are the chances you give it where Drake May is the quarterback 1 in this class at the end of the year going forward?
I think he would not do it by January, but if in April he has Ted McMillan as his number 1 receiver and he had objectively a better rookie season maybe than Jaden Daniels, because at the end of the season he catches up and makes up ground and stuff like that.
He looks so good right now.
It would be by May that he is Drake May is the QB1 by the month of May. I think that could happen, but I don't think there's any world in which he's QB1 over Jaden Daniels until he gets receiver upgrades.
And I agree. Like, again, for what it's worth, it's not like a negative against it. It's more so like, yo, can Drake May be like the quarterback 3 in Dynasty by the end of the offseason?
Yeah.
Like
these guys, I feel less. Let's just put it this way. When I traded Drake May or Jaden Daniels in a 2nd round pick before the season for Drake May, I feel less bad about it now. By week 4, I looked stupid as hell.
Drake May stands unite, baby. I feel
Drake May was just good. I mean, I don't know what we were doing, calling him like, oh, his footwork is bad. It's like, it's like literally the most correctable part of playing quarterback, right? Like people were like talking about how bad his footwork is. Like, one off season with an NFL quarterbacks coach, and that will be fixed.
Dude, he's playing the ball. He has what, like a 90 passer rating, playing with Pop Douglas as his wide receiver 1 and a bottom 3 offensive line in the league. Like, give the man his fucking flowers. Like, we got Kurt Bankert talking going into the year, like, oh, I don't know if he's going to be good right away. His footwork, it's like, buddy, can we just take the uber talented, mobile, freak of nature quarterback and just let him figure it out on the fly? Like, seriously?
Well, dude, Drake May and Jaden Daniels give some credence to the whole, it's not where you land, it's just if you're good or not. Like, sometimes the franchise quarterback thing is just simply you're a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, as much as we're like, oh, Bryce Young got dealt a shitty hand, maybe he'd be better if he was
I'm done making excuses for, like, Trevor Lawrence and shit, buddy. Like, if Drake May's doing this with the Patriots, you don't need 5 years to fix around the Jaguars. Let's figure it out.
Yeah, Lawrence, I can't quit Lawrence. Like, I still think he's good quarterback.
Talented, but like, let's figure it out.
You just please get the coaching hire right, please. Like, good Lord, get the coaching hire right. Because that team, you have Ben Johnson to Trevor Lawrence with Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk and those guys. Like, that's going to be a good offense. They're going to be a really good offense. It's so frustrating. It makes me want to beat my head against the wall watching how bad they look at times.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, that whole segment was just talking about the quarterback position in Dynasty. Again, you will actually be doing a Dynasty Trade Targets video talking about each position, and I'll be getting you guys with the redraft trade targets. So, well, we talked about the quarterbacks. Hopefully that gave you guys some value. I do want, because we mentioned the Colts-Jets game. Obviously, Anthony Richardson.
Can we go through some injuries quickly? Because they're not that serious. I just want to rattle through the injuries that happened this week, because we usually do that at the top. So the Jacksonville Jaguars are the source of most of the injury stuff because Gabe Davis tore his meniscus. I mean, he wasn't super fantasy relevant, but it hurts the offense, I guess. Brian Thomas Jr. maybe got banged up in that game. It wasn't clear what the injury was. Maybe he just re-aggravated his rib injury or whatever. They're on bye this week, so I'm sure he'll be fine. Apparently, Trevor Lawrence could return post-bye, is what I've heard. I don't know why you would. Your coach is going to get fired. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, maybe during the bye. I don't know what's going to happen, but Doug Peterson's as good as gone. I mean, they got wiped by they got hung 52 points on them. So
they had a worse loss against the Lions than we did.
Yeah, which is insane. And guess who beat the Lions? Anyways, the Jaguars
you have one more win than us.
They're pan-seared, they're flambéed, they're cooked, they're done. Don't bring Trevor Lawrence back. Get yourself a high draft pick. Get yourself Travis Hunter for both sides of the ball, whatever you want to do.
Hey, I'm cool if they want to win some more games. I mean, I have a team that I want to tank down to the first pick. I'd be grateful to tank for Travis in Dallas.
I don't know why. This is a weird take.
You're going to say he's going to force his way to Dallas?
Doesn't he just look like a Jaguar, Travis Hunter? I don't know why. I could see him in a Jaguars uniform. I don't know why.
Dude, did you see all the fucking little rumors? Like, well, Deion Sanders, he played for the Cowboys, so he's going to make sure Travis Hunter forces his way there. It's like, buddy, that is just complete Cowboys fandom hopium. Like, can we not talk about that? Like, is Eli Manning the last time we've seen a guy legitimately hold out from an NFL landing spot?
Yeah, and I also as great as wide receivers and cornerbacks are, I think the only position you can get away with that is quarterback. I don't think you can do that unless you're a quarterback, and even then, it's difficult to do.
I mean, Deion Sanders thinks he can do anything, so maybe we'll see what he ends up deciding.
It would be so funny if he tried to force both Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter there. If he tanks Shedur's draft stock enough that he falls into round 2 or something.
Jesus, dude. I mean, just looking at if we can get into the top 6 or 7 picks and we get any of those blue chip talents, I'm happy. That's where I'm at with it. It's like go 3-14 if you have to. Lose to the Giants on Thanksgiving and let them jump you in the draft order for all I fucking care. There's no reason for us to win another game this year, especially knowing that once you get to pick 10, pick 11, the quality in this draft class just falls off.
Yeah, you need a top 5 pick for sure in this class, and ideally pairing Hunter or McMillan or Graham or an offensive tackle or whatever you can do.
Will Johnson
would be great. Would be great for your team. But anyways, other injuries, nobody significant went down with what we consider to be a serious injury. Both Raiders running backs left the game and didn't return. Alexander Mattison, RIP to me, and Zamir White, ankle injury and quad injury. Remember that Zamir White actually had a quad injury a couple weeks back, so maybe it was a re-aggravation. Madison had an ankle issue. I think that was popped up on the injury report a couple weeks back.
Hear me out,
I don't know. What's up?
He got you 9.5 points. I mean,
he did. Hey, we'll take 9.5 points from Alexander Mattison, but both of those guys monitor their health status. That could factor into waivers this week. Darnell Mooney tweaked his hamstring, did not return. Maybe it was because the game was out of hand. Maybe it was because he couldn't come back. Not exactly sure, but that one might be the most severe injury that we had this week as far as timelines and whatnot. They are on bye in week 12, so it's possible that he doesn't miss any time for this.
Was it the same leg as the one that he was limited with the Achilles injury?
I don't know. That's what I heard Dr. Moore say too. He was like, I'm not sure which leg it was that was the Achilles injury, so it might have been a compensation injury or whatever. It might not have been that serious. They might have just held him out because they were getting destroyed by the Broncos. But
shout out Denver, by the way.
Dude, Denver, what did I say?
They're a playoff team.
So I put down Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the NFC South. I put $20 down on it last week, and it's cashing out for twice what I put down on it right now because the Bucs schedule is super easy and the Falcons have lost 2 in a row.
Hey, fair enough. I mean, Denver's a playoff team, right? With how their defense has been playing, with how Bo Nix has been playing.
Dog, if Bo Nix brings them to a 7 seed, that is the most successful rookie season we could have probably anticipated from a team that should have been competing for a top 5 pick this year.
Dude, he's just Brock Purdy, right? Is that what he is on this?
He's
offense?
Baker, man. Who did I call him coming out of school?
That was I had him Baker too. Yeah,
he's Mayfield, man. That's who he is.
I'm just saying in terms of right away, because we saw Purdy.
This would be fun also. You put Ashton Genty in Sean Payton's hands, man. I would have a fucking time with that.
Oh, no. He was saying that when we were talking about Dallas, but I agree. I think
personally. He said Elway, you're getting Genty.
Yeah, but he typed it when we were talking about the Cowboys.
Elway, yeah, right.
Yeah. But he was talking about Elway forcing himself to a spot. But with Ashton Genty. Let's just say the Cowboys tank right and they get one of the blue chip, corners or edges. Like Abdul Carter, by the way, I talked about it with you. Abdul Carter isn't getting the top 5, and now he's starting to get the top 5 buzz. But for the longest time this year, people are like, oh yeah, no, I got Carter mocked 17th in my mock. It's like, buddy, the guy who's 6'4", 250 pounds with 4.4 speed with 8 sacks already in the season is not falling to 17. He's going top 5, Abdul Carter.
Yeah, we're talking riser like Brian Burns, Josh Allen type
He's
of
a
shit
freak,
when
dude.
they were coming out.
Like, have you watched him at all, dude? Because like some of the fucking pass rush wins that he has, it legitimately looks like an insta wipe like Micah.
So here's the thing, and people who are in relationships will know this. I would love to sit and watch college football all day on Saturdays, but when you have Sundays where you're watching football all days, unfortunately, you cannot do the same thing on Saturdays. So I wish I watched more Texas games live. I wish I watched more college football games live. I have maybe sat down for 5 college football games all season long, and that might even be an overstatement, to be honest. I have to be doing shit during Saturdays. You know, you got an open day, and your girl's like, hey, we got to fill it up with shit. You got nothing to do today? Let's fill it up with shit. That's how Saturdays are for me, unfortunately.
Hey, Bush, good thing that your co-host is a sloppy beer degenerate 24-year-old that can watch those games for you.
There you go. We watch the tape in the off season. That's how that's how it goes for me. Anyways, other injuries, Raheem Mostert.
Ethan. Yeah. He ain't lying though. I mean, right now, if I was in a relationship, do you think I'd be growing this the way I am? Like, this looks disgusting. I'm not dumb.
Yeah. Raheem Mostert, hip injury, did return. Probably not a huge deal. Puka Nacua, wind knocked out of him. AC sprain, did return, had a huge game. DJ Moore left and returned. Didn't even specify what the injury was. T. Higgins took a huge hit to the back. Was also seen somewhat limping. Hopefully he didn't re-aggravate the quad injury, but he did play through it and had a monster game. Of course, it's on the thumbnail of the stream. And then Ladd McConkey, AC sprain, potentially, but did return to the game. So those were all the injuries.
He's unreal, by the way.
Yeah, he's great, man. Let's have a conversation about him, dynasty value wise.
Okay, well, let's have this conversation. So entering the week, I had him as my dynasty 27. And honestly, looking back, like that feels too low considering you take him over Olave, you take him over Rice, you take him over Brendan Ayuk, you take him over JSN. You take him over the win now receivers with Hill. I mean, you're easily taking him over Waddle. Where are we ranking Waddle in Dynasty now?
I have no idea what to do with Jalen Waddle right now, man.
Did your audio switch?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, you're good now. It sounded buzzy for a second. Maybe the connection for a second, but we're good. Yeah, I have no clue what to do with him either, though. I heard that.
Yeah, I have no idea what to do with Jalen Waddle. This is the conversation we need to start having. We're talking rookies. Who are you taking, Ladd McConkey or Rome Odunze?
I think it's got to be Ladd at this point. I am going to move Ladd to a spot in my dynasty rankings, and I want to see if you can pick up on it or not.
So
all right, I moved him to that spot.
McConkey is 19 in my rankings at wide receiver. So the guys I have immediately ahead of him, DK Metcalf, George Pickens, Rome Odunze, Jaden Reed, Devon. You know what? Honestly, the more I think about 15. It, yeah, McConkey is Jaden Reed with a similar situation, only he plays on the outside also.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a good point. I'm going to move him below Metcalf. Yeah, I mean, Ladd McConkey, I moved down after I moved Reed down a couple spots. I moved Ladd McConkey to wide receiver 14 in Dynasty. I mean, he was like my wide receiver 22 coming into the year, and now he's had a phenomenal rookie season as the number one target for Justin Herbert. Also, by the way, I'm not sure if you've been checking the reports from Matt Harmon. His reception perception profile, it's legitimately better than Malik Neighbors from a pure separation standpoint.
Dude, he's filleting on his routes, man, which should shock absolutely nobody who watched the film on Ladd McConkey.
I mean,
we broke down his all 22 on the site, and we were like, this guy is the most automatic out and in breaking route runner that I've seen in a long time. For a guy who had a shaky college profile where there was injuries and, production was a challenge, I think we should all just realize how good Brock Bowers was, that Ladd McConkey could command targets at a super high level because of how good Brock Bowers was.
Dude, I have him as a mid-second right now. That's another guy. I have him as a mid-second right now. How close is Brock Bowers to being a first-round starter pick?
It's very close, man. If in tight end premium formats, I think you could definitely make the argument that he should be in the same tier as the top end receivers.
I'm looking at it. Bowers or Kyler Love. Like that, I have the two quarterbacks ahead of him, but I think if you wanted to argue him, you could make the case he's like an early second rounder or late first rounder.
Dude, we were taking Pitts there 2 years
That's
ago.
where I'm at too.
Or 3 years ago. We were taking Pitts at the 1-2 turn. And honest to God, like Bowers has so much more than Pitts ever had at the time. Like he has to be in tight end premium formats. He has to be a early second at the very least.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. Wow. I moved to 13.
He's a machine, man. Brock Bowers is literally a machine.
14.
He's through the first 10 career games. I saw this tweeted out today. Only Odell Beckham Jr. had more receptions through his first 10 career games.
Brother, in 10 games to start his career as a fucking tight end, when the first 3 games he didn't eclipse a 70% snap rate. Keep this in mind. He didn't eclipse a fucking 70% snap rate in his first 3 NFL games. And he's averaging 70.6 yards per game and has 3 touchdowns in 10 games. Could you imagine if the Raiders get their franchise quarterback and we see that touchdown number jump from 3 to, let's just say 0.7, 0.8 touchdowns per game? Because I think Bowers is absolutely capable of doing that. Dude, he's averaging 16 PPR points per game right now. And he's a rookie. Like he's the clear-cut tight end 1 in fantasy and he's a rookie. Like, what are we talking about in terms of ceiling? Are we talking about a guy that can, as a tight end, be close to the 18-plus point per game threshold?
Dog, if that's the case, he should be a top 5 startup pick in tight end premium formats.
I mean,
he's untouchable. He's literally untouchable. Like, dude, I'm so angry that I don't have more Brock Bowers shares because I just couldn't get him for whatever reason. I just didn't have a lot of 107, 108, 109s.
My thing with him was there's so many good tight ends in the landscape. What's his overall appreciation value? Can he be a guy that enters the first round discussion? With the tight ends around him depleting and with him being this much of a freak of nature, he answered that question emphatically. He put a fucking exclamation mark on it. Also, my camera just shook me when I smashed my desk.
He's at least a 1 and a 2 more valuable than any tight end on the market. And that's
maybe
no disrespect to Trey McBride or, whoever else you want to talk about.
Bro, so since week 5, 12 targets, 23.7 fantasy points. 10 targets, 16.1 fantasy points. 14 targets, 19.3 fantasy points. 1 down game against KC where he caught all 5 targets for 5 catches and 58 yards. That was only 10.8 fantasy points, but he literally caught every target. 8 targets, 15.5 fantasy points. And then this week, 16 targets out of the bye with 31.3 fantasy points.
He's a machine, man. He's a literal machine. And I grabbed so much of him in best ball, and it's part of the reason why my portfolio is doing pretty well right now. Like I'm advancing 27 of my 100 teams, which is like good advance rate. Yeah, feels good.
I can't say enough good things about him. And I like you said, dude, I wish I just grabbed him in every league.
I know.
Like, I don't know why.
It's honestly annoying me that I drafted Rome Odunze over him like multiple times.
Yeah, same.
As much as I love Odunze, like when you think about the positional scarcity of the tight end position and the guy
I'm talking about in redraft too, dude. Like he was a 7th to 9th round pick in so many leagues. And
I'm glad I got him in our listener league, and I'm never trading him ever. You tried to trade me.
I almost convinced you, bro. You said Kelsey. I almost convinced you.
I did, but when I said that, I went and looked, and I was like, yeah, no, actually, I would rather have Bowers.
Okay, think of it like this too, Bush. When I'm the person coming in asking you who do you prefer rest of the season, and I have the other guy, and I'm asking you it, you probably click in like, what is he looking at that I haven't seen yet, and what can I see to make me understand?
Bowers is the easiest schedule I've ever seen.
The easiest schedule I've ever seen,
and that's why schedule I've ever seen.
That's why I tried to trade for him from you, for the record.
But he's a machine, dude. He's a machine, man. We could glaze Bowers for forever, but I'm just still so mad that I didn't get that many shares of him in Dynasty. I got 1 share of him in Dynasty, and it's pissing me off that I didn't draft. Like I drafted JJ McCarthy over him once, which again I needed a quarterback, so that's why I did it. I understand. Odunze over him twice, I think, or 3 times potentially. I never drafted McConkey or Worthy over him, even though I did have Worthy ranked higher. So thankfully, I never actually had to make that decision.
Let me paint a picture for you right now. You 1 year punted out of a 2023 startup. While everybody was hyping up those 2023 draft picks, you stockpiled 8 or 9 2024 firsts. Your current team is Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels as your quarterbacks. You have Brock Bowers at tight end. You have Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. as your wide receivers. You have Brian Thomas, who you got late in the first rounder. And then you could have probably backfilled in the second with guys like Tracy, with guys like Benson, with guys like Brooks, with all these fucking running backs. You realistically, from a team that had nothing on its roster, if you stockpile 2024 picks, could be a fringe playoff team with all those guys between 21 to 23 years old.
Yeah, and they're all rookies this year too, and some of them aren't even on the field or like didn't start games until like earlier on in the year or later on in the year. But yeah, insane.
And people always ask us like, "Oh, you have all these picks. Like, when do you plan on competing?" It's like, buddy, it's easy to say that about my team when you just see 2024 first round pick, but then when you see what these guys are doing on the field, you realize real quick, hey, maybe my rebuilding window is a lot quicker than you guys think it is.
Yeah, well, and as we've talked about too, like if you're trying to do a 1-year punt, go get your quarterbacks locked down, because as you know, the quarterback position is not looking terrible in 2025, but it's also not going to be great. Like if you had, let's say 101 and 104 this year and you grab Drake May and Caleb Williams as your quarterbacks, and this year you got 5 or 6 2025 first, you're going to be locked and loaded with some flex production at wide receiver and running back coming out of the 2025 class. So that's how we're doing it. And the tight end position looks a lot better this year than we thought it was going to be too.
Yeah, for sure. So that is the talk on the tight end dynasty landscape. What are the other main? I do have to mention this takeaway. Hallelujah to you, Breece Hall managers. We have been through the thick of it. We have been through troubled times. That 30 bomb was for us. He looked at us on the screen. He said, "You know what? I've put you guys through shit. I got you this week." And we see, Breece Hall, 16 for 78 with a tug on the ground, and not to mention in the air, 7 catches, 43 yards. This is the Breece Hall we've wanted for how long? Since we drafted him this offseason?
Yeah, he's been a stud, man. He's been a stud. In games where they function and give him the ball, he's been a stud. Let me just preface it with that. But yeah, I actually had to trade him away in my home league, which was really sad. After this week was over, I traded him because I have 3 of my best players on bye in week 12, and I need to win out. So I traded him for Jonathan Taylor, who has a bye in week 14. So I spread it out a little bit. I'm also playing a team that's really good this week, so I wasn't going to win patchworking together the roster. So I was like, if I lose, my season's over. So like, would I rather have Breece Hall rest of the season? Definitely. But it's not a massive difference. And it's also a guy that I needed to play this week. Thankfully, I have Breece Hall on my big dog team, so I have a lot of exposure. I have Breece Hall on my listener league team, and I have him in like 2 of my competitive dynasty league teams. So I'm still very invested in the Breece Hall experience.
I will say, I would have tried to at least get insulation if you're going to do the tear down.
I tried, but there wasn't really anything that was going to be done there. And I suppose instead of trading Breece, I could have traded T. Higgins or Drake London, but people didn't seem to value. Like when I was talking to people in Discord yesterday during the games, it didn't feel like people were as in on T. Higgins and Drake London as I was. Like I value both of them as top 15 receivers and Drake London as a top 8 receiver. And I was getting like, oh, Drake London's a high end wide receiver 2, T. Higgins a back end wide receiver 2 type of offers. And I'm like, I think I can, if I can get through this week and they're coming back for me week 13 and beyond, I think they're going to be great.
What about like Arnie? Who are his running backs? You probably could have sold.
He has Achane and Bijan Robinson, which he would not have traded for Breece. And then his other running back is Chase Brown. I mean, when we trade Breece Hall for Chase Brown,
who's on bye.
Yeah, who's also on bye. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I would know because I have both of them against Zach this week.
Yeah, if I could have gotten to Bijan or Achane or whatever, I maybe could have done that. But I don't know. I think it's probably better that somebody was on the table willing to give me JT right away, and I'm like, you know what? If Richardson starts playing better, Jonathan Taylor could have much better games. He's also kind of on the low right now, I think, as far as his usage and, his production not catching up with itself. So maybe JT is just as good as Breece rest of the season. I just avoided having a triple bye week onslaught. And Dylan's saying, give me Tracy in the chat right now. I'd like to give you Tracy, but I won't have a running back to start in week 14 when JT is on bye if I only have Dobbins and Tracy behind JT right now.
Well, let's talk about. So, we're talking about our rest of season rankings a little bit. You mentioned if I can get up to Achane from Breece. Who you have Achane higher than Breece rest of the season? So?
I've had him higher than Breece rest of the season for like 3 weeks.
I said still because like obviously we know the schedule now
like
for Breece.
3 weeks. Since Tua's been back, I've had Achane higher, and I don't think I saw anything that.
I'm going to ask you that question like after this weekend. Like you're still going with Achane?
Yeah.
Okay, fair. The reason why I'm asking is because I currently have them both 4 and 5 in my rankings. I moved them. Like I had Breece below like Kyron, for example. I moved him above Kyron. Then it's a combo, man. Like, where are you ranking Derek?
I had him at like 6, I think, coming into the week.
That's where I have him right now.
Something
but
like
it's
that.
like
His schedule was bad, man. What did I say?
I know.
Like a couple of weeks ago, I was like, his schedule isn't good. And it's like, yeah, people were like, oh, Derrick Henry, like never fade him. I'm like, I'm not fading him. I'm just saying like there's better options that also catch passes with better schedules.
Yeah, like I'm looking through it right now. Like, where do you rank like Gibbs, Taylor, Brown? Like, I think they're very comfortably more of the back end RB
Yeah.
ones.
I think Gibbs versus Henry is definitely a conversation, given how good the Lions are and Gibbs catching passes in PPR formats. You could definitely make the argument for him over Henry.
Like, I'll tell you, so in terms of my top 12, after the adjustments that I made, I have it right now. Barkley, Bijan, McCaffrey is my top 3. I did move Brees over HM because once he's done with the bye, again, like if you need a player this week, take HM because he doesn't have his bye. Yeah. But after the bye, Brees' schedule really opens up. That was the main thing for me. Like if you're a contending,
I'd still rather have HM.
I think that's fine. I mean, 4 and 5 regardless. Pick them out of a hat. I do actually have Mixon above Henry because I trust the Texans.
Mixon might legitimately. I'm up 36 points on my opponent right now, and I'm scared Mixon might still win.
He might. Dude, he might.
He's gonna have a monster game tonight. Like he's dropping a minimum of 20 fantasy points tonight. If you guys need Mixon to have a big game tonight, like it is the best a game could be possibly stacked up for him. You have a bottom 5 run defense, maybe not as much with Parsons back, but it's still a bad run defense. And you also have a positive game script, and the Cowboys lead all NFL teams in yards per reception allowed to the running back position. So even if Mixon only has 3 or 4 targets, he might break a long
41 yards, 50 yards.
It's going to be a bloodbath for Joe Mixon. People who don't need Joe Mixon to have a good game, like cross your fingers and tighten your cheeks because he is going to have a monster game.
Yeah. So I have him at 6, Henry at 7. Kyron, I got to give him his respect and rank him 8 here. But part of me so badly wants to move Gibbs, Brown, and Taylor over him.
Kyron's got to be ahead of those guys.
I can't do it because of the schedule too. Like that's the other factor.
Yeah, Kyron's got a great schedule, and he also he's gonna have better games.
I'm a little bit worried because we did see Corum actually worked in this week that we haven't really all year. Yeah. So that was.
I'm not worried about Corum, to be honest. I like the usage. He had like 2 games of like missing 4 snaps or something. Like he's he's the best workload in fantasy.
Trust me, I still like Kyron a lot. It's just more so like I genuinely think like I have Kenneth Walker at RB12, and people will argue that that's too low. And it's not even just I'm too low. I like him.
Too low.
I like him, but like, am I going to rank him above Taylor or Chase Brown, who's handled 100% of running back touches in the last 2 weeks, or Jahmyr Gibbs, who he's losing touches, but he's also on the best offense in the NFL, and it's Jahmyr fucking Gibbs. Like
I'd still rather have Walker than Chase Brown because the big plays have been absent for a while for Kenneth Walker, and they're probably coming.
I don't disagree.
There's been a lot of negative runs for Kenneth Walker, which is like kind of soured a lot of people's opinion on him.
I'm honestly just really excited about the workload and the receiving opportunity for Chase. That's kind of why I have him at 10. But you lagged out for a second here. You good, Bush?
Yeah, sorry, I must have froze there for a second. Was there any other? We can go into the Dynasty trade stuff here soon. Was there? I mean, obviously, we got
probably a couple of takeaways, right?
The Packers getting a blocked field goal against the Bears after the Bears already lost a game on a Hail Mary 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago is pretty insane to me. There wasn't a whole lot of like takeaways I had from that game. What did you think of the Bears offense without Shane Waldron? I thought Caleb looked a lot more comfortable.
A lot more structure.
A lot more structure. A lot more DJ Moore, which is what I've been asking for weeks now too.
Yeah, the thing that I noticed, and again, I brought this up to you, but I didn't think Caleb was bad in the out of structure situations. The only issue is because there was no structure to their offense with Waldron, he was put in those situations too many times. And you could be the most talented quarterback on planet Earth. You can be Patrick Mahomes. If you're only operating out of structure situations are inherently less valuable than in structured situations. If you have an offense that gives you free layups, gives you free yards down the field, it's a lot easier to be an efficient quarterback in those circumstances. So we saw a lot more structure this week with Caleb. He had his most efficient game as a passer, 23 for 31, 231 yards, not taking like the clear, like terrible sacks that he was taking in the past few games. Like we're actually starting to see a quarterback that is confident with the system around him. And I don't think we've seen that at all for Caleb Williams this year. On top of that, like you said, Rome Odunze, solid game, 6 for 65. Like you said, with DJ Moore, getting him involved in space. Like this is what we wanted to see if you do have the Bears pass catchers. And we've been mentioning this for a while. Like if the Bears can figure out their shit, they have the type of schedule opening up where they could be league winners down the stretch. Again, I still think one game, new OC, maybe they're trying to play for him. Like, I'm not willing to say like the Bears pass catchers will be league winners, but if you bought low on them when they were worth fucking pennies, like if you bought DJ Moore when he was probably the wide receiver 32 on the market in terms of price tag,
He might have been cheaper than that, to be honest.
Wide receiver 37 on the market. Rome Odunze is probably like wide receiver 50. If you bought low on them at that point, like, am I going to go out there and say, yeah, DJ Moore's going to be a wide receiver 2 the rest of the season and Rome Odunze is going to be a high-end wide receiver? No, I can't say that with full confidence. But can I say they've absolutely gained value moving forward? Yes.
Yeah. No, I was impressed with what I saw from all those receivers. It looked like they were playing a lot better. DJ had some plays where he did DJ Moore things, make people miss. Rome Odunze won some 50-50 balls. Keenan Allen had a couple crucial like third down conversions. That's exactly what we wanted this offense to look like. So I know they only scored 19 points and they ended up losing the game, but it's progress. So that definitely feels good for Caleb Williams bag holders. And, you know, they played a good team, man. Like the Packers are a good team. They're 7-3 football team, and it's a division game. It was going to be rough and tumble there. They have a little bit of an easier schedule, like you mentioned, down the stretch. I mean, we could probably rattle through some more games and talk about some other takeaways quickly.
Okay, I thought you were going to move on to the Dynasty Trades, because I do have to mention to you, is your overall trepidation for the Dolphins offense alleviated with seeing how Tua played this week?
I actually traded for Tua in our Flock Me Silly league. I traded JJ McCarthy and a fourth for Tua and a third. Because to me, I have them like pretty back-to-back-ish in my rankings. At the very least, I think they're in the same tier. Again, each guy has their own individual concerns, but actually what made me want to do the trade is the fact that JJ actually had a second cleanup procedure on his knee, which I saw Deepak say he's not actually a lock to be ready for the start of the season with that injury cleanup. So that actually scared me a little bit on McCarthy, to the point that I'm like, I still think McCarthy's going to come in and have like a good, career and whatever, but I still think to some degree.
And you're competing too, so that made your decision easier.
Yeah, exactly. I'm competing. I had Lawrence go down. I have Daniel Jones, who also just got benched. So I was kind of in need of quarterback play, and Jones was on bye this week as well. So to me, it made a lot of sense because, does JJ McCarthy have a higher value accumulation ceiling than Tua Tagovailoa? Absolutely. But like, is JJ McCarthy ever going to be the 101 in fantasy one day? Like, probably not. Like, I think his ceiling is probably like the Jordan Love, Kyler Murray tier of quarterback asset. Like, I don't think he can be much better than that, to be honest. Unless he was running a lot more than we thought. I don't think he'll ever get beyond that point. So Tua's a good, productive quarterback, and I needed one.
Like, realistically, he would need to be one of the top 5 to 10 quarterbacks on earth to be in the Burrow to Stroud area. If he'd
have to be as good as CJ Stroud, to be honest, as a passer.
Pretty much. We were talking about, just Tua overall, 28 for 36, 288, 3 tugs, looking good, looking like the Dolphins that we've grown to know. But
good Raiders pass defense too. They were really good all year.
Yeah, and speaking of Tyreek Hill, man, Tyreek Hill, he did not look limited by the injury. He caught a touchdown in this game. His first touchdown, I believe, since week. Actually, no, he caught one last week.
He caught a touchdown last week.
Caught one last week. I meant to say his first week over 15 PPR points, I believe, since week 1, right?
Yeah, first top 20 week since week 1.
Yeah. What did he end up finishing on the week? Because I know he had 19.1 points.
He ended up finishing with 19.1 points. This is his first wide receiver 2 finish. He was a wide receiver 12 on the week, but this is his first time finishing as a wide receiver 2 since week 1. Like, not even a wide receiver 1. Like, we thought going into the year, how many games is Tyreek Hill not a wide receiver 1? Like, he's going to be, 20 point per game guy. No problem. No questions asked. I had him wide receiver 2 on the season, 103 overall. I was pissed in my draft that I didn't get him at 104. Like, I wanted him so bad at 104 and I didn't get him and I got sniped on him. So I ended up taking Lamb, who ended up falling to me because of the contract dispute. So
before the injury to Dak looked like a good pick, but
yeah, he had Lamb has had a weird season so far because he
scaled up before the injury.
He started slow and then had a monster couple of games, and then he's obviously not going to be as good down the stretch without Prescott. So I still think I made the right decision trading for Breece Hall, at least at the time. Maybe I should have just taken Jefferson, but I was probably never going to do that given my rankings. So
you took Garrett Wilson over him. You weren't taking Jefferson there.
Yeah, no, there was no way I was going to do that. Maybe I should have taken Chase. I could have done that reasonably. Or no, did Chase go ahead of him? I think Chase might have went ahead of him in my draft.
Which you never would have known at the time. But regardless, though, 7 for 61 in a tug, 8 targets, looked like Tyreek Hill. I believe he actually had another target in the red zone as well. Like, if Tua's going to play like that, they're going to have easier matchups than the Raiders because, like you said, the Raiders are a run funnel defense overall. I don't know, man. Like Jalen Waddle kind of looks like an afterthought in this offense. Jonnu Smith, I mean, 6 for 101 and 2 tugs in this game. Maybe
one big play too. Like we
Yeah.
haven't seen what was the last time we saw a fucking 50-yard touchdown from Tyreek Hill? Week 1? Like
yeah, against
he might have one, like, or a couple down the stretch. Like I'll admit that I was a little hesitant to buy Tyreek Hill, and I probably shouldn't have been as hesitant, especially given the offer that I was sent by Zach in the Flock League. I don't think
that easily.
I would have still lost this week, so it wouldn't have even mattered. So
let me ask you this now, though,
for the season.
So I had going into the week Tyreek Hill at wide receiver 11. With the news of Danny DeVito's son starting in New York, you're taking him over Neighbors. You have to. It's Tommy DeVito.
I think so. Yeah.
You taking him or Garrett Wilson?
I think I'm taking him.
This is where I think I would lean the other side. I think you need to take both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua over him, given how the Rams' offense has looked. But that moves him up to 9 for me.
Yeah, I think I would still take London. Would you take Deebo Samuel or Tyreek Hill?
Tyreek Hill. Dude, I'm way more worried about Jawan Jennings than you are. I think Jawan Jennings.
Yeah, I got to move Deebo down a little bit, I think.
I got to move Jawan Jennings up too, bro. Like, where is Jawan Jennings a wide receiver 2 the rest of the season, genuinely?
Probably not a wide receiver 2, but at the very least, like, wherever you rank, solid, high-end wide receiver 3 options, I think he's got to be in there. Like, if we're talking, Calvin Ridley, given his schedule, I think belongs to be there in that range because of how good his schedule is and the target share that he's getting. I think Jawan Jennings at least has to be on par with like Calvin Ridley types or Ladd McConkey types or, Tank Dell or somebody like that.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I'm like literally adjusting it on the fly, just like looking at this because.
Here's Nick says, so Tyreek or Evans?
Tyreek. Come on.
I'll take Tyreek now. I'll concede that it's Tyreek, but I would take Evans over Neighbors rest of the season.
I don't think that's outrageous with the bye week gone now.
Let me tell you this. I have Tyreek right now at wide receiver 9, and I have Mike Evans at wide receiver 11. So they're both studs rest of the season.
Yeah, like here. I have no clue where to rank Deebo, bro, because I am actually genuinely terrified about the receiving talent around him.
I'm not terrified about it. I'm worried enough that to the point that I moved him down to wide receiver 13.
Because he had 6.1 points in a game where did Pearsall have a target?
I don't know. I don't think so.
No Kittle on the field.
Yeah.
Like this was a smash spot for Deebo and he had 6.1 points. Like
here's another guy that I don't know if you're going to talk. So what we're going to do this week, we're going to do something a little bit differently. Danny's going to cover redraft, like league winning trade targets down the stretch. And this is the time of year that like the arms race is on for dynasty contenders. I'm going to cover dynasty trade targets because we also did a update to our trade value chart, and we'll probably do another update now after this week's games because we probably got to move Bo Nix up and Anthony Richardson up and those type of guys. One guy that I would lobby for, I don't know if you plan on talking about this person in the redraft trade targets, but I think Marvin Harrison might have a post-buy rookie bump, and I think he definitely has a chance to be a league winner down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Like I have Marv right now as more of like a mid-end wide receiver 2. But here, let me adjust McLaurin down because I am a little bit more worried about the Washington offense than I was 2 weeks ago. I mean, Marv or George Pickens versus. I think it has to be Pickens.
I'd rather Harrison.
I think with how Pickens has played, you have to take Pickens.
He's played really well. But he's
got a great schedule too.
I think Harrison might fucking fillet the rest of the season, man. I have him at 16 right now, so I think he's a pretty good option. I have Pickens at 18.
I have Pickens at 18, Marv at 19 right now. I have Higgins at 17, DK at 16. I probably got to move Reed down. Is that the guy?
I have Harrison over Garrett Wilson, man. The vibes are just so off right now with the Jets.
What did I just do? Okay, no, I moved Evans over Wilson.
Yeah,
I moved Evans up to 10, and I have Tyreek at 9. Man, I want to move Tyreek higher. I can't lie, but I can't.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I wouldn't do this personally, but you could sell me on Tyreek over London. I just probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I have London at 6. I have the Rams guys, and I have Tyreek. You can even make the case, like you said, that Tyreek's. I think that's a pretty fluid tier. I think. I moved Monra up to 5, and I think him versus AJ is a combo for me at 4. Depending on dude, if Nico goes out there and crushes, I don't even care. I'm moving over Jefferson. I don't even care.
Yeah.
If Nico goes out there, has like a 30-point game, like I know he's capable of against that defense.
Yeah. I need to take my victory lap on Danny saying that Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't have a high ceiling, and then he just had like a 38-point week.
What's crazy is they still threw the ball less than 30 times, but he just actually had the week where he scored the touchdown.
Which was precisely my point. Is like when you have Detroit Lions players, this is possible. That's exactly what my point was on St. Brown the entire time. He might have like limited, pass volume and stuff like this, but they also like didn't need to throw the ball as many times as they even did. You get them in more competitive game scripts, and maybe they'll throw the ball a little bit more. St. Brown is just an excellent player on a great team.
Yeah, he's been cooking.
He's a stud. Anyway,
he's up to 19.1 PPR points per game now, so good for him.
Did you have any takeaways from the Browns and Saints other than the fact that the Saints just randomly get like
the drunkest game ever?
So drunk. Random special teams plays. Jerry Jeudy decided to drop like fucking 30 fantasy points also, which is weird.
David Njoku, 9 catches, 81 yards, 2-point conversion. You'll take that if you started him.
PPR scammed me in my home league. I love to see that.
Hey, I got to ask you this, Bush. How upset are you with it right now? I mean, you were never going to do it because of the bye week, but when I had the offer on the table and I said, I will deal you Chase Brown for Cedric Tillman and Calvin Ridley. Now looking back,
I don't think it would have made a difference, man. Like, I honestly don't. I still would have lost this week for starters.
No, I know. Given the context of your record situation, the bye, like I get why you did it, but like also like Chase Brown's value is just so much more than that now.
It is, yeah, maybe but it's like giving me more work to do. Like I would now have to sell Chase Brown because he's on bye right now. So like,
I know.
It's just challenging when it comes to some of these hypothetical trades. What I should have fucking done is never traded for Brandon Ayuk, and my season would be in a lot better position because Ayuk blew his knee out, and I traded JSN, Amari Cooper, Kareem Hunt, and fucking Bucky Irving for him.
Yeah, no, you probably would have been
all that depth, all those running backs. I've been playing Madison and Jerome Ford and all these crap RB2s all year. I'd have Kareem Hunt for the last 7 games, putting 20 points up or whatever he's been putting up the last couple of weeks. And I had him when he was like, he was a throw into the deal. He was nothing. Carson Steele was supposed to be the starter when I traded him.
It wasn't the difference like, you gave him 30 fab instead of 40 fab if you threw in Kareem Hunt?
Yeah. Kareem Hunt was worthless at the time. And it was, I picked him up too. It killed me. Like if that trade, if Ayuk was a wide receiver 1 rest of the season and stayed healthy and stuff, I'd actually be in pretty decent shape still. But
you still would have lost the deal though, too.
I still would have lost the deal, but at least if Ayuk was a stud, then that would have been like, okay, at least I got a stud receiver out of this deal. But not only did Ayuk get injured and be out for the season, I gave away all those like pretty solid pieces.
Yeah, no,
and Hunt was the one that actually, he was the cheapest of the pieces in the trade. He was the one guy that if I had just done the trade, JSN, Cooper, and Bucky Irving and gotten an Ayuk who was a wide receiver 1 for the rest of the season, kept Hunt, I'd be in a really good spot right now.
Hey, Mason, let's get it, brother. I'm a Cowboys fan. And I'm rooting for Nico because I'm trying to tank, and I would just love Nico to go off. But yeah, no, Bush, you've gotten some really unlucky, untimely moves this year. I can't lie. That's very unfortunate. But we do have to mention, I mean, we were talking about the Saints-Browns game. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention Taysom Hill just scorching earth. Like, let's talk about this overall stat line, right? We could really ignore what he did as a passer. It's just kind of comical. 1 for 2, 18 yards, needed to throw a pick. It was actually like a trick play. He threw a pick like on the end zone, whatever.
It's so funny.
But it's crazy. You got like negative output from him as a passer. But then when you see his rushing and receiving, 7 carries, 138 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 8 catches for 50 yards. I played against Alvin Kamara, and it was the Taysom Hill show. I am forever grateful. On top of that, which makes it even more hilarious, is so we matched up in a couple different leagues this week. Specifically, though, in a league where you're 6-4 as a top contender, I'm 3-7 tanking, and I just had the most tank of all tank blow up weeks ever. For those of you that are unfamiliar, so half my lineup got like 3 points or less: Pirine, Davis, Kyle Pitts, Jalen Wright. But then the other half of my lineup just blew up. Like Josh Allen went off, Nakua, McConkey, Jonnu Smith in the flex, Taysom Hill in the flex, Jameis in the super flex. Like, what is going on? Like, genuinely, what is going on?
Yeah, I can't believe I lost this week to you. How many of other teams would I have beaten? Also, would be my other question.
You're projected 176. So, oh my God, Arnie versus Ryan Brolo with a shootout, 198, 195 projection.
Yeah.
Like you would have beat everybody except for
most other
those
teams,
three.
like at least fucking 7 or 8 of them.
Yeah, top 5 scorer in the week and not winning is very unfortunate. I mean, I just will give myself some flowers in the redraft in my home league. Stafford,
one
with
of
the
Danny's
Rams
6 home
receivers.
leagues.
I got a Kraft Zero burger and I still put up the most points in the league this week.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. Can we also talk about in the fucking the listener redraft league again? All depends what's going to happen because I still have Stroud, Mixon, and Nico tonight, and he has. I have Stroud, Mixon, and Nico, and I'm down 50 points against Brock. So basically, that's what, like 17 points each I need from them. So yeah. I feel good about my chances. But dude, I had in my lineup this week. You won't guess who.
Johnny Smith.
No, wide receiver, big play, maybe the biggest play of the season.
Oh, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine?
I started Nick Westbrook-Ikhine in the fucking listener redraft.
Oh my God, that's crazy. 98-yard touchdown. That actually irritates the hell out of me that you got a 98-yard touchdown.
I just see Brock. When I saw that was crazy. And I mean, like, credit to Brock. Like, he still really has a good chance of winning. Like, it's giving him a 42% chance. Again, hopefully, knock on wood, I can get over the top. But yeah, no, my season.
That's crazy, dude.
Dude, I mean, the fact that Brock still has a chance to win because my 3 1 p.m. slate guys were Devon Achane, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, all scored over 20 points. My 3 425 plus Sunday night guys were DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, and Mike Gesicki, who combined for about 8 points.
Yeah, that's insane.
So
this is the last thing we'll say, and then we'll get into the dynasty trades here. Where does JSN rank in your dynasty rankings? And we talked about McConkey earlier. Who would you rather have, JSN or McConkey?
McConkey.
Okay. So if JSN's behind McConkey, JSN or Jaden Reed?
I would still take Reed. I have, if you want to ask me where I currently have him at 23, but I think you can make the case of him being over Tyree, Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, depending on your winning position.
So I have him at 18. I have him just behind.
I got to move him above Odunze, so I moved him.
Yeah, I got to move him ahead of Odunze as well.
Him or Zay Flowers?
I have Zay Flowers at 13, man.
Him or Devontae Smith?
I have Devontae Smith 3 spots higher. I have him at 14.
Yeah, no, honestly, that is a good point. I got to move Reed down a little bit.
Yeah, I think
it's tough.
Knowing JSN was also the better prospect kind of still does factor in a little bit too.
Yeah, especially too.
If they're comparable and JSN was the better prospect, I think the edge goes to JSN.
Yeah, no, I feel that. So I did make that adjustment. I think that's a good point. I moved JSN to 18. I have Reed at 19, Odunze at 20, T. Higgins 21, Cooper Kupp 22, Tyreek Hill 23, Brandon Ayuk 24, and then Rashid 25. I have like the injured guys like in a cluster where it's like Ayuk, Rice, and Olave are all 24 to 26 because the guys above like Tyreek and Kupp are going to give you a winning advantage if you're a competitive team, and all the younger guys I would prefer to them. But after that, it's like I would, even knowing the context that they're hurt, I would still take them over Debo. I'd still take them over DJ Moore. I'd still take them over Jalen Waddle, Devontae Adams, Tank Dell. Tank Dell, maybe I move up a couple spots, but like Tank Dell or Jalen Waddle.
I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with Jalen Waddle, man. Like I have him at 23 right now, and I just I have no idea if that's correct or completely wrong.
Yeah. No, I agree. Rome looks good if Caleb can just figure it out. I mean, that was my thesis coming into the year. It's just unfortunate I had to take a Dunze in the 6th over Kenneth Walker to start seeing it after I traded him away.
Yeah, not a great situation for that. Yeah. But anyways, let's talk about some of these dynasty trades that we were sent in here. I will load them into the overlay because I do think there's a couple guys that we've talked about so far that it would be probably worthwhile to look at their trade markets. So we got the first trade was from Chuck that I wanted to break down. I thought was really interesting because there's a lot of like high, name value guys that are like kind of in flux in terms of value in this deal alone. So it was a super flex best ball trade. Full PPR, half tight end premium. You trade away Olave and Ferguson, who are definitely both on the down right now. You trade them away, and he didn't specify where that first would end up being, but I got to imagine that's got to be like an early to mid one, given the package that he's doing here. If it's mid to late, obviously I think you crush this deal, but early to mid one, probably most likely. What are your thoughts on this?
Why do you think it's an early to mid one?
Well, just because Olave and Ferguson are on the downswing right now. It would be hard to see this deal going through if they weren't.
Well, I mean, Chuck, I think that's a mid to late one, because if I'm equating the value, Olave, like if he was healthy, would be the most valuable player on the deal. And then I would view it Laporta and Anthony Richardson right now. Like I want the bottom side, to be honest, because the way I equate this is Laporta and Anthony Richardson versus Ferguson in the first, and then Olave versus Downs.
Yeah, I think if that is a mid to late one, I think you can definitely argue that Olave in the mid to late one equals Richardson and Downs, because I think that Downs and Olave are a lot closer in dynasty value than people maybe want to admit. And Richardson, if he is going to be the starter going forward and you believe in him, I think he is worth probably a mid to late one right now. And then Sam Laporta over Ferguson very easily. So that would make up any difference there.
I wouldn't say very easily.
It's very easily, man. You got to admit that Jake Ferguson is a merchant of the fact that he plays with like Prescott and a good offense.
What's Laporta been this year?
Huh?
I would take Laporta for what it's worth, but saying easily, I think is miscued. Ferguson was easily outproducing him this year when Dak was healthy. And what are we expecting from Laporta? Are we expecting him to be this high and tight one that he was as a rookie? Or are we expecting him to be the guy that he's shown all of this year?
I just think Laporta is a way better player, to be honest.
Why
in dynasty, that's all that matters.
For why is he a way better player?
Because he had
based on his rookie season?
Prior to Brock Bowers.
You cut out big time for me.
Prior to Brock Bowers coming into the league, he had the best rookie tight end season in 50 years. That's why.
And what's he been this year?
He's having a sophomore slump right now. That's obvious. That's happening. It's not great, but I still think Sam Laporta is a very good player and probably the third most talented tight end in the league.
I would take Laporta for what it's worth, but I think saying he's way better than Ferguson is wrong.
I don't know. Chat, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Jake Ferguson is a top 12 tight end in the NFL who's in a good situation, in my opinion. I think that's what he is. I don't think he's a very big needle.
Laporta's in the best situation in the NFL, and he's produced.
He's not though, because he has a lot of other talented targets there. It's not. He obviously plays for the best team in the NFL, but
Jameson commands like 4 or 5 targets. They're throwing the ball less. That's why his production has gone so far down. But even so, he hasn't played like the player he was last year.
You're right about that. I just think when we're talking about like.
Also, what do we expect to change? Jameson Williams, Amon St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. They're all going to be in the offense.
I think it's just a matter of Laporta playing better, to be honest. And I think he's a really good player. That's pretty much it.
I don't know, man. We saw the floor of the Cowboys offense this year. They go into an offseason, they get healthier. They make some additions in terms of their coaching staff. They make some additions in the draft. I think you're completely underrated, Ferguson. That's where I'm at with it.
Does anybody in the chat agree with Danny that Jake Ferguson's like an elite talent? I think he's like an above average. If you put Pat Freiermuth in Jake Ferguson's spot, I think he'd be producing the exact same thing.
Dude. See, Pat Freiermuth?
Yeah.
You need to watch
Cole Kmet and Freiermuth are just as good as Jake Ferguson, in my opinion.
Dude, you are insane. You need to watch some Jake Ferguson, bro.
He's a good player. He's a good player. He's a way better average starting tight end in the league.
Cole Kmet, get out of here.
Cole Kmet's outproducing him this year for starters. So
Ferguson literally lost Dak, and the entire offense has been banged up. Like what? Okay. Their offensive line.
Ferguson lost Dak, but Cole Kmet has had a very struggling rookie quarterback who's having one of the worst rookie seasons we've seen in like 10 years.
Bro, what? I don't know what you're talking about right now. Like Ferguson in 2 less games has the same amount of receiving yards. Like, what are we talking about?
He played with Prescott, who's a veteran quarterback, 30 years old.
Okay, and the offense
got a rookie quarterback in Shane Waldron for Cole Kmet.
They were still throwing the football.
I guess, man. I don't know. I just don't think Ferguson's that good, man. I think he's a good player.
You're insane.
Pretty much everyone in the chat agrees with me. So
what are you talking about? Literally half
Ferguson
the chat's
is better than Dalton Schultz, but not an elite tight end. Ferguson's trash, average to above average. I think he has elite quarterback throwing him the ball. Kmet is him.
Also, we're not talking about rest of season Caesar. I understand. If you want to take Taysom over him rest of season because Dak's out, go ahead. But saying he's like a Pat Freiermuth and Cole Kmet would be doing the same job, you're insane.
I think Freiermuth is actually better than him, to be honest.
You're insane. Off of what?
He's just a better player.
No, he's not. Bro, his PFF receiving grade is higher is your reasoning. Get the fuck out.
No, I just think he's a better player, man. My eyes tell me he's a better player.
Then you need to get your eyes checked. That's
Everyone in the chat agrees with me, and no one agrees with you. So
then chat's faded. Watch some Jake Ferguson and then realize how good he is. Like what?
He's a top.
What are we
15
doing?
tight end in the league.
You're
He's solid.
insane, dude.
He's solid.
Anyways, we're not going to crash out over Jake Ferguson right now because you're faded. And obviously, I watch the Cowboys on a week-to-week basis.
And you're also biased and shit.
You said Pat Freiermuth is better than fucking Jake Ferguson. Get the fuck out of here.
It's more proof that Jake Ferguson just isn't that good.
Yeah,
it's not that I think Pat Freiermuth is a huge needle mover.
You're insane. You're insane. Like, what are we talking about? You guys
Jake Ferguson, the current 43rd ranked tight end, according to PFF, who has fucking...
Buddy, watch him fucking play football. Don't go on the fucking PFF database who graded what? Baker Mayfield as the quarterback 1 in fucking NFL this year? Like, what's the grade right now?
You guys want to play a fun game here, and then we'll move on. Here's some tight ends with a higher yards per route run than Jake Ferguson, who has had one game where Dak Prescott has been missing.
Okay.
Hunter Henry, Mike Gesicki, Brenton Strange, Josh Oliver, Tanner Hudson.
Look at what he was doing, A, last year, and B, before fucking the offense in the middle of the season was banged up. What are we talking? What do you mean? Dude, you guys are fucking faded if you think Ferguson isn't a great player. He's a top 8 to 10 tight end at the very minimum.
Please name me.
What are we talking about?
Tight ends he's better than.
Bro.
In the top 8.
How many, dude, I literally just talked about the fact that him versus Laporta is very close, and you guys think
it's not, bro.
Yes, it is. What are we talking about here?
Danny, you're 1v 150ing the chat right now.
Brother, Ferguson was banged up at the beginning of the year. In the stretch where the offense was finally healthy and functioning, was legitimately a tight end 1, a mid tight end 1 in fantasy. And now everybody, because Dak's hurt, because he struggled at the beginning of the year with a fucking knee injury, people are letting that fucking dissuade. He got hurt against Cleveland. He missed the next game. And since that game, between weeks 3 and 9, prior to Dak going down, was legitimately a needle-moving tight end. What are we talking about?
He's fine.
What are we talking about?
He's fine.
He can't.
He's a good player.
Brother, watch the fucking tape. Ferguson's a great blocker. What are you talking about, Tyler? Get out. Why am I crashing out over Jake Ferguson?
I don't know. Here's the last thing I'm going to say. I know you're going to be so mad, but brother K-Dot is better than Jake Ferguson.
Well, because he gets peppered fucking 20 fucking Baker Mayfield targets from
he's having a breakout season.
He's a good player, but he is literally just Jake Ferguson 2.0. That's what he is.
Exactly. Both of them are mid. I'm not saying.
I think both are great players. I think both are top 10 tight ends.
Dude, you got to count the tight ends before you say shit like that.
Okay. Look, they're both better than Kyle Pitts right now. They're both easily better than Kyle Pitts
but Kyle, that's not saying a lot, dude.
Like how many of the 5 tight ends you take over them right now? 5? Like there's a clear-cut 5. Kittle, Kelsey, Brock Bowers, and Njoku. Those are 4. Who am I missing?
Realistically, there's probably a cluster of tight ends from Cole Kmet's, Dallas Goedert's, Pat Freiermuth's, K. Otton's, Jake Ferguson's. They're all just fine.
They're both comparable to Mark Andrews.
No, they're not. Mark Andrews is way better than both of those guys.
That's why you need to watch the tape, Ryan, because there's a big difference when Liam Cohen is calling the biggest layup of all layup offenses I have ever seen, and Mike McCarthy doesn't know how to get his guys in motion. There's a difference.
I don't know. You just said Mark Andrews is not better than Jake Ferguson.
No, I said he's better, but I think they're all fucking comparable tight ends. Like,
no, they're not, dude. They're not.
Andrews at this point
is way better than those
Andrews
guys.
At this point of his career. I'm not talking about prime Andrews. I'm talking about
he's coming off of surgery, bro. He's fine. He's not. He's hurt right now.
McBride is the 5th. McBride is the 5th. I'll give McBride the 5th.
Yeah, McBride is way better than.
No, I don't disagree on that. But like, regardless, so once you get to like tight end 6 to 12. Like, are we arguing them versus like Kincaid, Evan Ingram, Dallas? Like, they're all the
Evan Ingram is definitely better than both of those guys. Yes, he is.
Why?
He is.
He runs fast. Because he runs fast.
No, because he commands targets better than like literally any tight end in the league.
He soaks up 10 targets on the Jags 3 yards from the line of scrimmage, and he's automatically way better. I mean, anyway. The answer, quite simply, if we're talking about like 6 tight ends being in the 6 to 12 range, all being the same, maybe this rookie tight end class could actually fucking separate itself.
Maybe. Like I said, anybody from the Cole Kmet, Pat Freiermuth, K. Otton, Jake Ferguson territory, they're all comparable talents, in my opinion. Yes, we are really arguing tight end 6 to 12. This is precisely what we do on this show, is argue nonsense. I
just think it's so dumb because all these guys are the same.
I mean, it should speak to you that like everybody is not on your side. That's all I'm saying.
It's a Cowboys take. Of course they won't be on my side. They want to see me fucking mauled.
Cowboys fan. Everyone.
Brother, you said Pat Freiermuth was better than fucking Jake Ferguson. Take a lap. Take a lap. No, he's not. Take a lap.
Anyways, let's move on from this
Pat
conversation. Speaking of Cowboys stuff, let's settle down on the Cowboys thing here, because I think you can agree this is too much to pay for CeeDee Lamb, right?
So what? Like basically, it boils down to Pickens, HN, and like right versus the third and Bub means sure, cancel that out. Then it's what?
Yeah.
Lamb, Whittington, and a third for Pickens, HN, and Tillman. I think that's a pretty fair deal.
Yeah, so he said, I'm getting Lamb for pretty cheap because he's finishing a rebuild and looking to compete next year. If you have a lot of assets and you're able to move off of HN and Pickens and Tillman to like upgrade your starting lineup, in theory, I think this is pretty solid. But I don't know, you're giving away a top 5 running back and a top 20 wide receiver and a top 40 wide receiver, I guess, with Tillman in Dynasty. I think it's a couple pretty solid pieces for one piece that is obviously great and is going to hold value. But I almost low-key like the Achane side here, just because I think Achane's a needle mover at his position, just like Lamb is at his.
Yeah, I mean, this is the tax you get to pay for like a top 3 overall player at the position. But then again, Devon Achane isn't that far off. Like the way I'm kind of equating this is if you had to redraft the startup this now, because I'm going to be, again, like tinkering more with my startup rankings. I did adjust them last week. So CeeDee Lamb is still going to be a mid to late 1 in my rankings. And then you're looking at Achane plus Pickens. So we're looking probably what, a 2-3 turn value plus a third rounder, late third.
Yeah,
like Pickens would probably go late third, HN 2-3
probably
turn.
about that.
Yeah, I think that's enough for me to cash on like a mid to late first round startup pick. If somebody offered me, let's just say right now, the 202 plus the 309 for or not the 202, sorry, the 211 plus the 309 for the 109, 108. Like I think I'd be willing to take that.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment of it. But I think if you're in a position where you have a shit ton of assets and you're coming out of a rebuild and you're like, I'm gonna just get a hammer for next year when I'm competing, I think it's
you lagged out.
It's a fine offer to send out for. It's kind of interesting to me, where you have Wanye basically making a competitive tear down, but also staying competitive to recoup his assets. This is something that I don't think people are usually doing very much. Where Wanye told me in the tweet that he's a competitive team that had no future capital, basically. And he's like, I'm trying to recoup some future capital. I'm guessing his team is a horse. That's basically how he framed the question. But this is the 2 trades that he ended up making. He sells off Metcalf, London, and Achane for Bijan and St. Brown, recouping a 2nd round pick from a 3rd round pick. So for me, this is like St. Brown versus London.
It's a free Metcalf.
Yeah.
I mean, not quite, but you know what I mean.
It's a moderately small tier up for both Achane to Bijan and London to St. Brown, but you're getting Metcalf for a pretty sizable discount if you're the team on the other side of it. So again,
by the way, for the
you're
record,
a competitive team. To me, reason to make this trade.
If you're a competitive team, you're taking the DK side all day. The reason why is that it's a 16-team league, and depth A is going to be mattering more, and B picks matter less. So a second rounder in a 16-teamer, again, assuming that that's your own second rounder, you're acquiring Metcalf, London, and HN. Like that's probably going to be like the 213, 214 at the very minimum. And then at that point, 213, 214 in a 16-man league, like you're already looking at like a mid to late 3rd round pick projection anyway. So realistically, the way I look at it is the picks don't mean much to me. Is Metcalf worth the tear down between Amon-Ra and London and Bijan and Achane? And absolutely it is for me, because when I'm looking at my startup rankings, Amon-Ra to London, I think they're both 2nd round startup picks. Like I think Amon-Ra probably in the early to mid portion, London more in the mid to late portion, but go in the same round. Same thing with Bijan versus Achane. Like I literally have in my running back rankings in Dynasty, Bijan, Breece, Gibbs, and Achane all 4 in a row. I have Achane at the 4th of them, but that's literally separated by 3 spots with him and Bijan.
Yeah,
and it's a free Metcalf.
No, I agree. I think especially like in a 16-team league, I don't care how good your team is. Like having a depth piece like Metcalf is a needle mover in a 16-team league, no matter how good your team is. You could have 8 good wide receivers already. Like Metcalf is worth that. And then the other trade that he ended up making, which I think I like this one a little bit more, he sends away St. Brown, and the second, I'm assuming the one he got, maybe it's his own, and he ends up getting Puka and a 1 for St. Brown. So to me, I think this is a better representation of tearing down and picking up a pick as opposed to the first trade that he ended up making.
Yeah, I mean, I almost who do you have higher in Dynasty, Puka or London?
I have London higher in Dynasty, but they're pretty close for me both. I have London at 8 in Dynasty, and I have Puka at 10.
So you probably have what, Marvin B. Tom over him or AJ Brown?
I have AJ Brown. I have B. Tom one spot behind Puka at 11. Just because this season he kind of got wiped out a little bit. I moved him down as just a tier break.
So the only difference for you is you'd have AJ Brown higher than me then.
Yeah, I have AJ Brown between the two of them.
Okay. I have Amonra 6, London 7, Puka 8, Brian Thomas Jr. 9, Marv 10, AJ Brown 11 right now with Garrett at 12. Yeah, and then after them, I actually have Pickens at 13 because I really think he's playing like a superstar player, and we're starting to see the volume catch up. Like, if you told me Pickens was like the skeleton key you need rest of the season, look at his schedule.
Yeah, it's really good. It's hard to not rank him higher than I want to. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Where do you have him right now? Because I have him at 13.
I have him at 17, but like I
would take him over Flowers very easily.
Like I think McConkey, JSN, Metcalf, like Flowers, Smitty, like they're all kind of in the same range for me. Like it's almost pointless to even argue these guys. Like they're all very similar players.
Also, on top of that, how close are we to? We're gonna have to start a dialogue here, bro. How close are we to ranking Nico Collins? Not only in the tier with the top 4, but ranking any of over the top 4. I think he's close to being a first-round startup pick.
I have him at 6. I have him in a tier with like St. Brown and Harrison kind of just slightly behind the top 4 tier with Neighbors in that tier.
You have Marv over him?
Huh? No. I have Collins over Mars.
Okay.
I do, but he's one spot behind because like I said, I'm kind of projecting that Harrison's going to have a really strong, back half of the season. But Neighbors, because he's like 20 years old or 21 years old, to me belongs in the tier with Jefferson, Lamb, and Chase because he's just as good as those guys. But not, like Collins and St. Brown and those guys are like 25. So there's like a little bit of a difference. Price tag. Honestly, if you told me you'd rather have Collins than Neighbors or Collins than Lamb or Collins than Chase, I mean, to me, Chase, I think is the one, like he's been at 1 for me for like the longest time. As wide receiver 1 overall in Dynasty, and he hasn't really moved much. For a brief period at the beginning of the season, I moved Jefferson ahead of him, but I prefer Chase. So,
yeah, and to be honest, I think I will make that move because Chase is just simply averaging like 3 or 4 points per game more than him this year. So, like, there's just no reason for me, like, knowing that they're going to hold the same type of market value in the offseason, there's no reason for me to have Jefferson over Chase with how Chase has been producing. Because I mean,
the thesis was always that he has Burrow. That was always the thesis for me. One has Burrow.
Yeah, I mean, he has, 12 touchdowns in 11 games this year? Chase?
Yeah. Chase and Jefferson are equally as talented as each other. Maybe Jefferson's slightly better, but one of them has Burrow. One of them has Burrow, and one of them has Sam Darnold / AJ McCarthy. So to me, it's very clearly that Chase should be 1.
It's pretty hilarious because, I mean, the consensus top 3 receivers in Dynasty are, order them however you want, Lamb, Jefferson, and Chase. Jefferson was like the 2022 guy. Then Lamb was the 2023 guy, and now Chase is the 2024 guy. And I think it's anyone's guess who's going to be the 2025 guy. Like they've all like had periodically their year of just being the clear-cut one amongst those 3.
Yeah, I think you can make the argument that just at least from now until the rest of the season, maybe in the offseason you just switch it back. You probably should prefer St. Brown to Lamb.
I can't do it.
From now till the rest of the season if you're a contender.
I get it. I would need insulation and B, like I just can't do it because from a value perspective, like I've seen Lamb have a stretch where he was the single best fantasy football asset at the end of last year. And I
also tend to think that he's going to be fine tonight. Like, and he's going to have like 11 catches or something like that. Like, I'm not really that concerned about it.
This is another good point. It could very well be Nico Collins too.
Yeah, it could be. It could be Neighbors too. It could also be Harrison. I wouldn't be shocked if Harrison had a great second season.
Yeah. So what I'm learning is like, this has always been the case, but God, man, make sure you grab your quarterbacks and wide receivers early in Dynasty.
Is Harrison going to have a worse ADP next year than he had this year?
Yes.
That's kind of weird to me.
He's not going 1-2 turn.
He's going to go 2-3 turn probably.
I just think more elite wide receivers have established themselves. More elite wide receivers have established themselves this year because last year we were talking about, is there a first plus round difference between the top 3 and the rest of the group? Like other than Amonra, I would say, and Puka. Like after that, it was like, are we projecting London to get there? AJ Brown's a little older.
Well, like, Wilson was Garrett the guy Wilson. That I was projecting to get there.
You know what I mean, though? It's pretty hilarious. And it's funny because like I overpaid in the offseason. I'm not going to lie. I feel pretty good about sending you Wilson, Moore, and Coleman, just because of how dominant Jamar Chase has been for a contender. In TSC?
Yeah, I think you could have made the argument too after like the first couple. Like there was
you won the trade. There was a period of time. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a period of time where Wilson and Moore were producing, and it was probably like,
I would like. There was a point of time where I'm like, ooh, should I have made that deal? But to me, it's like if it doesn't matter what you pay, if you can get a guy that can average 23 points per game, like anything that, like even like when McCaffrey was doing it, I was so hesitant. I'm like, oh, like running back, do I really want to trade as much capital? It's like if he's genuinely that big of a difference maker in your lineup and you're contending, sometimes you have to pay the price. Sometimes you have to go up there and pay for a guy.
Also, why did you have to say this, Thrill Shot? You're giving Danny a chance to victory lap his Nico trade. Also, I mean, you've been holding on to Trey Benson for dear life all season because you're not going to drop the guy that you traded.
He got some good usage 2 weeks before the bye, and now he just had his bye post rookie bump. Who knows?
Yeah, like, dude, give it a week and he might be more valuable than Jalen Waddle the way that Jalen Waddle's trending at this point in time.
The cherry on top of the season in the Flock League, again, knock on wood. I'm not I'm not a guy to wish Cat's injury, but the irony if Connor were to go down, again, I'm not putting it into existence, but like I kind of am, just like for you guys to think of the hypothetical here. If Connor were to go down, who Mason has, and I traded for Trey Benson, and Trey Benson and freaking Nico Collins win me the Flock League, the amount of fucking stories we're going to have going into next year's vlog is going to be insane.
Yeah, I'm going to try a little harder in next year's vlog. Like I'll admit fully, like the Garrett Wilson versus Justin Jefferson switch in my rankings happened on that trip so that I could I kind of could take Garrett Wilson over Jefferson. Like for what it's worth, like I did believe it process wise was the correct thing to do. It's not like I just did it for content or something.
That reaffirmed it.
But was it the smartest decision?
You cut out for me.
Anyways, process wise, it was probably not the smartest decision to do that. But the bigger question, who has DeMarcado in the Flock League? I don't think anybody does. But
isn't he hurt?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I'm excited, dude. And like, again, like, do I think he's nothing more than a high implied handcuff? Sure. But at the same time, the way the coaches have been talking about him, if there was a period where he did get an opportunity, like if Connor missed any time, I don't think he'd give the job back.
Yeah, I don't think he would. I don't know. The coaches really like James Conner, and Kyler loves James Conner too. Like it's hard when he's the captain of your team.
No, I think that's a good point. Leave James out of this. Who's James?
James Conner.
Oh, James. I'm so banked. I thought I read it as Jameis for a second, and I'm like,
well, we never leave Jameis out of anything. So the early top 5 waivers segment of this stream is so useless and so pointless that we're gonna I'm just gonna give you some names that'll probably be in tomorrow's video, but like, there's no need to go in depth of anybody because they're all bad. The waiver wire, like the waiver wire right now is, if you need production, you're screwed. If you want to stash handcuffs, go ahead and do that. Trey Benson, we just talked about. Braylon Allen, Dameon Pierce tonight. If Joe Mixon were to go down with an injury, I think Dameon Pierce would be a decent shout. Dante, like you want to take Dontavian Wicks, who's like a wide receiver handcuff off of the waiver wire, go nuts. But like, as far as legitimate production, needle moving guys, Danny just picked up Jalen Coker in our Flock League. I'm sure he's available in a lot of your guys' leagues. If you needed a wide receiver this week, he just came off of his bye. He's probably available in most of your leagues. Running back production, we'll have to wait and see what happens with the Raiders running backs. That would be the only running back that would be like a needle moving asset on the waiver wire, because if Madison is out, maybe Zamir is available in your league. If Zamir and Madison are out, maybe you pick up Amir Abdullah or Dylan Laube or some of these guys. We'll have to wait and see what happens with the Raiders running backs. But the waiver wire is so ass this week that it is like barely worth even mentioning.
I mean, you for reference, I already know Jalen Coker may very well be your one. He's rostered in 9% of sleeper leagues right now.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Did everybody just drop him over the bye because he didn't?
I would imagine so.
Day?
Yeah. Dude, I would imagine people dropped him.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but when I see a rookie wide receiver get 88% of the snaps and 8 targets going into their bye week as an undrafted free agent, that tells me that the usage down the stretch may be pretty damn good for Mr. Coker. So, yeah, I mean, we were literally hopping on call when I saw him on the waiver wire. I'm like, how is Coker available in the Flock League? And then I realized, I'm like, yeah, Joe traded for him and then just dropped him right after he traded for him.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious if he's available in my my home league because I have guys on bye next week and I might actually need him. Let me just take a look. He is available and I'm literally going to go pick him up right now.
Dude, his playoff schedule is nice. Did you see it?
No, I did not.
So week 15, Dallas, week 16, Arizona, week 17, you guys.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So let me ask you this. Next week, because like I said, I have some players on bye, I'm going to be forced to start Ricky Pearsall or Jalen Coker if I go pick him up. Would you start Jalen Coker over Ricky Pearsall next week? Ricky Pearsall plays the Green Bay Packers. Jalen Coker plays KC.
Yeah, he plays KC. I think
it's kind of a bad matchup.
I think I'll go Pearsall because he implied points and they both have bad matchups.
Okay, so then what I'm going to do then is I'll pick up Coker maybe after tonight because I picked up Dameon Pierce before today. So I'm like, there's no I might as well just hold Dameon Pierce because I'll probably get Coker anyway.
Doesn't he register back to waivers if you don't pick him up tonight?
He does, but honestly, I would rather have Pierce as the starter for the Houston Texans if Mixon were to go down tonight. I think it's actually just a better upside play to do that.
Who else is on your bench?
I have fucking 3 quarterbacks on my team right now. Because I had Jordan Love and Kyler. Kyler was on bye. I picked up Justin Herbert because he projected better than Jordan Love this week. I mean, in hindsight, maybe I should have just played Jordan Love and not worried about it too much. But I didn't want my opponent to pick up Justin Herbert because he didn't really have a good quarterback. He ended up playing Jared Goff.
And you don't want to drop Herbert because you know his buys or his schedule is really good. And there's like no real drop of the quarterback room now. So you're kind of in quarterback purgatory.
Exactly. So what I'm trying to do right now is get someone to give me like a wide receiver flex option for this week coming up who I can play over Pearsall for one of the quarterbacks.
Yeah. No,
and this is the trade deadline after this week is over too. So that's why I'm also trying to do it.
Can you not trade one of those
matchups
quarterbacks
between whoever?
Does anybody that's in a playoff hunt need a quarterback? You can trade for maybe.
There's Dylan's playing Purdy. Some people have Goff. Some people, but like most
Goff just had a big game, so they're gonna ride Goff even though he doesn't.
Nobody's in a position that you look at where they're like starting, Sam Darnold or something right now. Like everybody pretty much has decent quarterbacks, but like Arnold has Jaden Daniels and he also has Ladd McConkey, and Jaden Daniels hasn't been good and he has McConkey, so maybe I could convince him in a trade package for one of his other players that I could throw in Herbert as a throw-in.
Yeah,
if he wanted to play Herbert over Jaden Daniels, maybe. I don't think he'll do that, but maybe he would.
Maybe you could just go back to him and say, hey, listen, like I know a couple weeks have gone by, but would you at all be opposed to potentially swapping back Jordan Love and Chase Brown? I'm fucking with you. You lagged out, but I'm fucking with you.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work.
No, I know. You look so disappointed in the freeze frame.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to work is what I said. I don't
Unfortunate.
think that's going to be doable. Anyways, don't worry. I'm moving and I won't have this stupid StreamYard Wi-Fi nonsense because I won't be in a basement apartment anymore, which is going to be really, really nice. But yeah, going to be nice. We're an hour and 27 into this thing. I think we're probably losing steam here. If you guys want to leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, we'll have you covered, like I said, with some league-winning trade targets. I'm sure a lot of you guys have trade deadlines this week, maybe next week as well. I would imagine most of you on the last week's stream said, or trade targets video, you said it was either week 11 that was your trade deadline or mostly week 12 was the comment that I saw most often. So they'll probably be the last trade targets video from a redraft standpoint this week, but I'll definitely have you covered with some dynasty trade targets as well this week. And then of course the usual Thursday through Saturday schedule with the tier list, the matchups that matter every game, and then the sneaky starts because we still do have bye weeks this week. And yes, we will be upgrading the dynasty trade value chart. Our rankings are up to date as of last week, but we're going to update them one more time because of some risers this week. And then we'll go through and update the trade values themselves as well. So that should be live by Wednesday because that's when the trade value or trade targets by position video will come out. But maybe even we'll have that done by today. So we'll have that and that'll be on the site.
One thing, very interesting tweet from Ron. So I'll just say it out loud. So he tweeted this out this morning, and we were just talking about Justin Herbert, so I may as well bring it up. So before the bye week, weeks 1 to 4, their EPA per play on offense was 23rd in the NFL. Neutral pass rate was 31st in the NFL, second worst. Herbert's points per game, he was the quarterback 27 in fantasy, and his rushing yards per game, he was only averaging 6 rushing yards per game. After the bye week, so week 6 to 11, EPA per play on offense up to 12th from 23rd. Their neutral pass rate, the big one here, from 40.4%, which is the second lowest, to 60%, which is the second highest.
Wow.
Since
that's a
big
big change for the Herbert city.
Week 6 to 11. Herbert's points per game, he's been the quarterback 9 at 19.4 points per game, and he's averaged 26.3 rushing yards per game. So, I mean, we were having the discussion in Dynasty before the bye. We're like, do we have to downgrade Herbert because of the offensive pace?
And I'll admit that I was definitely wrong about that. I will say I never like buried him to the point that you would like sell him for like Jared.
The quarterback 11, quarterback 12 is where
I was like, if you could get Murray or Love or somebody like that, I was suggesting that even before the season that you maybe should explore those avenues. Also, you guys are funny.
I saw that.
Like not handsome enough to compete with Mason. Yeah, let me just say one thing here. Mason has blonde hair and he's an adult. Grow up. Like, come on now. Like, get out of here.
That's going to get clipped back to him.
Any one of if you guys are married, ask your wives. You prefer dark hair on a guy or blonde hair on a guy? Like 90% of the women out there are going to take dark hair for sure.
No, I heard women prefer scruffy, unkept beards, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But Mason has his minions comment how handsome he is every single. I'm convinced that you're just Mason's burner account, Caesar, if I'm being 100% honest with you.
Bro, by the way, the skits that I have planned for this week, so I already messaged some links to Sammy on what to edit in. But dude, like some of them are hilarious. Like I will say, if you guys are Star Wars fans, you're gonna love some of the skits that I do this week.
Yeah, I was really annoyed with this week of games, so I just like didn't want to make that many clips.
I haven't recorded them yet for the record.
I was just like, I don't even want to make clips this week. I lost to fucking Tom, the dev. Like, I'm so mad.
No, the worst thing about losing to Tom, bro, is you see that he beats you, but then you also have to look at his profile pic.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
He's Mason's mod. Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Anyways, appreciate you guys for joining us again. Stay tuned for all the content. flockfantasy.com for the trade value chart update. The rest of season rankings update will be live today. And then my TikTok, I already have my picks for tonight's game. Will be live tonight's game as well. And then Daniel will probably have his pick 'em as well on the shorts at some point today as well. So stay tuned for all that. Peace out, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Did you already submit?